our guest tonight. He is the founder and CEO of TuneCore. His name is Jeff Price, and I guess I invite Jeff to come on up, and guys can say hello. But I want to thank him for coming here. Well, you started the label like 20.
Oh dear God!
It's like maybe 25 years ago. And okay, so anyway, so you got tired of running an independent label, and then you went to work for eMusic.
Yeah, so I had started an independent record label. I'd gone to Franklin and Marshall, and I had a degree in sociology, which is perfect to be a waiter. Which actually I moved a step up and became a service bartender. So you got that to look forward to. Well, it was free drinks. Anyway. So I ran the label for about, at that point it was about 6 years, and we had just released an album by a band called Lotion, which is a New York-based band, alternative band, and trying to get them a gig, tour dates, and I heard that the former lead singer of the Pixies, a guy named Frank Black, his real name is Charles, was going on tour. He had an album out, and I just called the manager, a guy named Ken Goes, who lives in the southeastern part of Massachusetts on a farm. This is the guy that manages the Pixies, if you guys know who the Pixies are. And he literally, him and his family have about, okay, so at least somebody knows who they are. Okay. Family has about 17 cats, I'm not kidding. And the guy does not leave his farm, doesn't like to travel. And I called him up, and I was on the phone pitching him on our band Lotion, opening up for him when he put me on hold and came back, and he said that the deal that he had for Frank Black's new album, for his band called Frank Black and the Catholics, had just fallen through. And I asked why. He said, oh, well, we were doing a deal with Stone Gossard from Pearl Jam for his record label. And we had done a deal with a company called Good Noise for the digital rights to our album. Now, this was 1996. And I didn't give a pardon my French. And I said, well, could I put it out? He said, make me an offer, and I did. And I went on to release the next 8 albums by him, a Pixies album and a dual CD. But what was interesting at that point, that's where I met 2 guys, Gene Hoffman and Bob Cohn, the founders of a company called Good Noise, which became eMusic, which was the first online digital store selling music as MP3 downloads in 1997-98 for 99 cents. And I met their consultant who was working for them and rewrote their business plan and began working for them and helped them raise venture capital. This whole dot-com boom thing you guys heard about, it was real. It was insane. We were involved. I was involved in helping them raise $120 million. I mean, that's just sick. And that company burned through it in about a year and a half. In any event, but that's how I ended up working with eMusic. I began to run the New York office, do licensing, content licensing for them, getting rights to master recordings from other record labels. Ran the New York office, eventually moved out west for a year to San Francisco, did business development for them, and continued to run the label back east.
So then, what is it, 3 years ago, you decided to do something different again?
Yeah, well, we, as you pointed out, I'll take a step back. Record labels make money by making people famous, and then they make money off that fame. That's really the whole equation. Vodka. And, and the problem that you have is that record labels generate revenue by selling music. So the more famous somebody got, the more music you would sell. And the problem is that correlation is broken. Now you can become extraordinarily famous and sell nothing because you can get music for free. You can distribute it in unlimited quantity, a perfect digital copy. There's no inventory. You can email it. You can IM it. You can peer-to-peer it. You can torrent it. You could do a million different things with it. You can rip it once and give it to your friend. It didn't used to be like that. And the challenge is you make somebody famous and you can create a commodity that other people want. The ability to get it for free exists, and frankly, if it's easy and it's cheap and it works on an MP3 player or an iPod, why not? So, I forget the question. Oh, how did I start this company? So here we were in 2005, and I had released an album by an artist, and I won't, I guess, go on record because I'm being televised. We lost about $80,000 on it. And Spin Art Records was a 4-person label, got as big as 5 and as small as 2, but it was 4 people. And that's a lot of money to me. It's a lot of money to most people. And that meant no health care, no salary, laying somebody off. And I was literally sitting in my shower, standing in my shower, trying to think, what the hell am I going to do to survive? Because the thing that I sell is what everybody gets for free. We released a band called The Deers, which out of Canada, and spent a lot of money. And the press kit was like this, and they were opening for Morrissey and doing tours with Soundtrack of Our Lives and a lot of other big bands. And you just get a rhythm for what you're supposed to sell, and we weren't selling it. So I was writing a check to the publicist for this band, and the publicist wanted, we owed him $35,000. That's the total PR bill for this band. It's very dramatic. And and it really, I wasn't a big fan of the publicist, but that's a lot of money too. And it occurred to me at that moment, and this sounds silly, but it occurred to me it didn't matter to the publicist if the music sold. It didn't matter to the CD manufacturing plant if the music sold. It didn't matter to the guy that made the video if the music sold, or the poster company, the DVD manufacturing company, or Xerox or the U.S. Postal Service. It didn't matter to any of them if the music sold. They all got paid off of my hard work and the band's hard work. And I began to think about the service sector side. How could I get to the other side of the fence? How could I remain in the music industry and come up with a model that generated money off of music but wasn't predicated on if music sold? And there's a company called Guitar Center. Any of you guys familiar with it? Yeah? Okay. So that thing is a giant. Guitar Center has 215 retail stores across the country. They were publicly traded until October of 2007. They were worth $2.5 billion, which compared to the stimulus packages is nothing, but it seemed like a lot at the time. They have a 33% market share in the United States in selling gear and equipment to musicians, cables, keyboards, you name the piece of gear or equipment. They get compared to Walmart as far as their pricing, but I think they're a hell of a lot cooler because you can walk in and take the $50,000 Stratocaster off the wall and play it if you want. That's what Guitar Center is all about. As a matter of fact, some bands have actually gone into Guitar Center with a camcorder and actually filmed a video in there playing on their equipment, and they upload it to YouTube. It's kind of cool. But here's this company that within a decade went from being privately held and being 10, 20 stores worth about $30 million to within 10 years being worth $2.5 billion with 215 stores, and all they did was sell stuff, gear and equipment. Now, when I was in high school in Washington, D.C., there was one kid in a band. Then again, my graduating class only had 22 people, but there was one kid in a band. Now when I go to a high school, everyone's in a freaking band. I mean, everybody. You can take your iPhone and play something called an ocarina on it now. So I realized that the music industry was actually very, very healthy. There was more music being created today or 3 years ago than there ever was before in the history of this planet, as far as I could tell. That everyone was in a band, that there were these new vehicles enabling people to pursue their dreams, their passions, and their goals, be it MySpace or a Facebook page, which didn't exist back then, or other vehicles. So I was really like, how can I get onto that side of the fence? And the other thing that occurred, if I can take some more time with this, is the model that existed up to this point in time is companies involved in the music industry only made money if the music sold. So to take a step back, if you're the Beatles or Madonna or Led Zeppelin or Radiohead or Coldplay, or take your pick and go back in time, you could make music on your own, you could record music on your own, you could manufacture physical product, you could gig, you could do everything on your own except one thing. Any idea? Distribution. You couldn't distribute your music into the retail stores where people would go to buy it because the infrastructure costs around that are so tremendous. You've got 3,000 square miles across the United States, and back in the old days, we actually had record stores and thousands of them. And you literally had to have a mechanism to manufacture physical product, CD, that's upfront money, warehouse it, have people pick up the phones, call all these different stores, pick, pack, ship orders, ship them out. Then you needed to have other people running around the country into those stores and begging the people in those stores to let you put the physical product onto the shelf. There were lots of releases. What was going to get access to the physical shelf space? And at a certain point in a physical retail store, if something's in stock, something else will not be in stock because it runs out of room. So you had people fighting to gain access to the shelf space. The record labels would pay the retail stores money to rent real estate in those stores. They're called cooperative advertising opportunities. So if you walked into Virgin, I'm trying to think what record stores are left anymore. Virgin Megastore shutting down, Tower shut down, I guess Walmart, Best Buy. But when you walk in, or Borders, and you walk into those stores and you have a listening station where you can put on a pair of headphones and listen to something, the record labels pay the store for that. That's how stores make a lot of money on co-ops. And the distributor enforces the compliance, and with the pay to the retail store, the store agrees to take in a certain quantity of CDs, all of which can be returned at any time for a full refund, by the way, because the entire music industry is on a consignment basis. You only know what you ship out. You never know what you sell. And it can all come back at any time for a full refund. So the traditional world of distribution, you needed the 500,000 square foot warehouse, all those people in the warehouse pick, packing, and shipping, processing returns, refurbishing the product, shipping it back out, fronting money on the label's behalf, beg, borrowing, stealing, and pleading to get access to that shelf space. Right? So you had to do a deal with a record label if you were an artist, because the only way you could get that magic moment where you made money is primarily, and I'm going to avoid gigs and T-shirts and merchandise for a second because it really used to come from music sales, was at the cash register of a retail store. And if you weren't on the shelf, the economic transaction could not occur. So that's the lay of the land. Up come digital stores, like an eMusic or an iTunes or a Napster or a Rhapsody, and the list goes on. And there were two fundamental shifts in the music industry which completely undermined the distribution system. And by the way, keep in mind that you only had, at the time when I started, there were 5 companies that were responsible for the majority of records being distributed, the 5 major record labels, which then became 4, which are now 3-ish. And it keeps, actually there was 6 and 5, so it keeps consolidating. So record labels are merely distribution arms of a product. Think of them like A&R. You guys familiar with the term A&R? It stands for Artist and Repertoire. You identify a band and you sign it. Well, A&R can be thought of the same way as R&D, research and development. You go out, you create a new product, lemon-flavored Pepsi. Okay, then once you've identified the product, in this case Mariah Carey, you've got to create the package around it, a nice bottle, and then you've got to manufacture the product in quantity up front, and then you have to go do the marketing campaign to get the consumer demand, and then you have to have the distribution vehicle to put it onto the shelf to allow people to buy it. It could be, toothpaste, it could be Mariah Carey CD, it's the same concept. So what digital stores did is, number one, they had infinite shelf space. And that means everything can be in stock. Everything. You didn't have to fight for it anymore. And that's a big deal. In the old days, you were literally buying the head buyers at national retail chains washing machines, or tickets to the Super Bowl, or taking them out to dinner, or getting them backstage to meet Bono, or whatever it might be, in order to gain access to that coveted shelf space. And that was just completely gone, because everything can be in stock in iTunes or Napster or any of the digital stores. If you run out of space, you just plug in another hard drive. And the other thing that drastically changed was inventory. You didn't need it anymore, because you had virtual inventory that would replicate on demand and as a perfect digital copy each time it was being bought. So you never ran out of stock. It was always there, and it was always perfect. You had no upfront cost. So if you don't need shelf space and you don't need inventory, what do you need a physical distributor for? And this is why the record industry is in such a conundrum. The major labels in particular, because they were all about the distribution of the product, and they've been undercut by a new technology called the internet, and storage and hard drives and broadband proliferation, which sort of converged all at once to create this sort of cluster, right, which is changing the whole paradigm. So that's the background to this. Shall I keep rambling? Okay, keep rambling.
It's not rambling.
And
It's good stuff.
the second thing that occurred beyond me trying to figure out how to stay in business was I had been approached by companies called aggregators. Now, aggregators were record labels, and aggregators were middlemen to get into the digital stores. Apple won't do a deal directly with artists. Either will any of the digital stores, because the administration and the headaches involved around it. If Apple said, hey, come to our website, upload your stuff, and we'll put you into iTunes, okay, they have 18-page contracts that they need to mail out to each person, get them countersigned, come back, keep a schedule, know when that schedule is up, renew them. Amendments come up from time to time, teach people how to rip and upload music. Your artwork's wrong, it's blurry, the song name needs to be... there's a myriad of issues. They just don't want to do that. So if somebody like Apple could have their dream scenario, they would just go to like one person and do a deal with one person to get all the music in the world. And then they only have to deal with you, right? And how happy are they? You have to deal with all the other stuff. So aggregators popped up because they could become distributors if they could get a contract with Apple. Let me deliver my stuff to you. Once they got that contract, they then could turn and play a gatekeeper to you or whomever's in a band, and say, look, you want to get your stuff into Apple? I'll get it in there for you, but I'm going to do it under the old school model. That is, I'll deliver it there, but I'm going to control the rights to your recordings, just like a record label, exclusively in the digital format. And I'm going to control those rights for a set period of time, 5 years, forever, 3 years, whatever it might be. And every time your music sells, I'm going to take a distribution fee. And a distribution fee is a percentage of the sale, just like the traditional brick and mortar, right? A record would ship out in the traditional distribution system. Let's say the store paid $10. The physical distributor would take 25% of that. $2.50 goes into the distributor's pocket. They give the rest to the label. Well, these new aggregators were doing the same thing. They would put your music into the digital stores, and every time your music sold, they were going to take a percentage of the sale, a back-end model. It made sense because it's the music industry. But it didn't make sense to me. I got approached by many of these companies, and fortunately I didn't need them for access because of kind of the area that I grew up in. But I let them pitch me anyway, and they came in and said, we're going to control your rights, and we're going to deliver that music, and every time it sells, we're going to take a percentage of the money that comes in. And I was like, wait a second. We just released the band The Deers, okay? These guys are from Canada. They're a 5-piece, actually 6-piece band from Canada. I spent $40,000 in tour support, $100,000 in co-op advertising with the retail stores. The band has been sleeping on floors, eating ramen. We're borrowing, and stealing, doing everything we can to get people to buy our music and buy the music that we're releasing. And you're going to tell me because you delivered a digital file from point A to point B, I'm going to pay you an unlimited amount of money every time the music sells? Well, that was the model. I was like, screw you. And that was the second thing that happened in my life. I got really mad. I don't like bullies. I really, really don't like bullies. I don't like people that take advantage because they can. And happens quite a bit in the media industry. So I had these two things. How can I get in the service sector side? And these that were ripping people off because they could. Because if you wanted to play the game, you're going to have to do it this way. If you're the White Stripes and you've got 4 back catalog albums, and I'm doing the distribution for you, and you go on to become an international mega superstar on those 4 back catalog albums, every time they sell, I'm going to take 30% of the revenue. Why? So the concept that I came up with is, well, why don't we just change the entire music industry? Okay, you got millions of people that create music and sound and spoken word and on, and tens of millions of them around the world, and there's a dam in front of them. And up at the top of this dam, you have record labels. And we at record labels look over the sea of people and music and sound, and we pick one band, and we say, we're going to give you the shot. We'll bring you over to this side of the dam. Everybody else, we're really sorry. We've decided to gamble on this band. We're going to spend the money. We make our money if they sell. The rest of you, maybe we'll be back later. And everybody else gets left out. My thought was, well, why not just break that dam down and let everybody through in regards to distribution? Put a little toll booth there, make it fair, make it equitable, come up with a new model. Make distribution, instead of a thing that you had to be chosen for, that you could choose yourself. So on January 26th of 2006, the music industry changed. For the first time, anybody on the planet could go to a website, TuneCore, upload their songs, upload their art, pick what stores they wanted to be distributed to, like iTunes, pay a simple upfront flat fee, usually about $30 or $10 for a single, get worldwide distribution, get 100% of the revenue from the sale of their music via a non-exclusive agreement that they could cancel at any time. And when they wanted their money, they could just log in and take it. And that was how TuneCore was born. And it's morphed into something much larger, but it was really necessity being the mother of invention. I needed to make money, and me getting really mad at a couple of people for coming up with what I thought was a really bad business model.
So talk about the difference between the record industry and the music industry, because people tend to use those terms and interchange them and think they're synonymous, when really there's a difference, and what you're doing definitely has an impact on one of those.
Yeah, it's kind of rethinking the music industry. The music industry, again, to date, makes its money by making people famous and generating revenue off that fame. And my thought is change the model, generate revenue by serving the musician, because it's turning into a self-serving model. The record industry, I mean, is more of an artistic approach, and I think that's what you were leading towards. It's about creativity, it's about art, it's about the realization of something inside of you, pursuing your passion, your dream, your goals, getting that one opportunity to stand on a stage and play in front of 30,000 people that are all giving stupid devil horns or the white man's overbite or whatever the hell it is that they're doing, and getting totally off on you, and you're connecting with them. I mean, that's what most of the art is about. It's a connection with other people that can understand it and reach in and connect with you about it. The music industry is about making money off of that. And in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that people that create art in our society or anywhere should be rewarded for that monetarily to allow you to make more art. And the question is, what is the model for that? And that's the problem that we're having now. The problem that we're having now is the model hasn't sorted itself out yet. The music industry, which was traditionally about distribution, has imploded. And the artist, which used to be compensated for the sale of his or her or their music, is losing out on that revenue. So the question is, what's going to surface, and how can, in my opinion, musicians continue to be empowered to create what they love to create and make a living off of it and not just a hobby? And that's literally what you guys are, what we're living through right now. The only problem is, in my opinion, the musician is being left out of the conversation. You know, Warner just told YouTube that it had to take Warner-controlled content down from YouTube. And I don't know everyone's backgrounds. And how many of you are like music industry or... Okay, so...
Well, everybody here is music industry, but how many... Everybody here plays some sort of musical instrument, I would think, right? That's a criteria. So,
okay.
And everybody here has goals or aspirations to be involved when they graduate in some capacity in this fantastic industry.
So the challenge with YouTube, or now you get into copyright law, and I mean, this just gets, the technology is so light years ahead of our copyright law. Anyone know who Orrin Hatch is? Okay, senator from Utah, right? The Digital Millennium Copyright Act. Actually wrote a song for Stuart Little, the movie. Yeah. Mormon. Very conservative. Impeached President Clinton. I'm not a big fan. Anyway, this is the man that's in charge of writing the legislation that impacts copyright law and the way revenue is generated in this country. And, you know, there's congressional hearings around this and so forth. And it sets things like streaming internet radio rates and the sorts of things that XM and Sirius have to go through in regards to non-terrestrial based streaming of songs and a lot of really high-end jargon. So the problem with something like YouTube is if you create music and you record it or write it down, there's a copyright around that. That's the way the U.S. copyright laws work. You don't even need to register it. It's just copyright protected. And if I put together a video and I upload it to YouTube and your music happens to be in my video, I'm violating the laws of the United States. I need a synchronization license and I need a master use license under the letter of the law in order to have your music appear in my YouTube video. So if you got a couple of kids screwing around and they want to do their own version of a Warner artist music video, they've just broken copyright law. If you're a wedding band and you're recording a wedding and you're putting it up, you've just broken copyright law, and so on and so forth. Warner, and I actually see both sides on this one, asked YouTube to take down all of their content. And they said, we want you to take down all of our music videos, and we want you to take down all the other video clips that exist within YouTube that feature our music that we control, because we're not getting paid enough money by you, YouTube. And the way YouTube pays out money is they base it on an advertising model. They wrap a music video for pick your song, and when the video shows, there's usually advertising wrapped around that, and they pay that out. And the amount of money coming in to Warner, it wasn't enough in their opinion. So they said, screw it. Why should we sit here and give you our content? Because our content drives you eyeballs. Eyeballs drive you advertising dollars. You're making all this money. Your company was bought for $1 billion by Google. What's in it for us? Except you totally raking us over the coals. YouTube, on the other hand, is like, well, wait a second. We're bringing you all this fame and notoriety for musicians, providing you a free media outlet where you don't have to compete to get access to programming like MTV. We're doing you a service. You should be grateful for the promotion that we're bringing to you. But ultimately, Warner wins because they control the copyrights, but Warner loses because you can't really enforce everything because there's no real way to do that. But those are some of the issues that we're struggling with right now. And I wrote an article for the Huffington Post. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. It's an online political blog and news source. And really, this all harkens back to the days of MTV. And so back in the old days, well, when MTV actually played videos and they weren't pimping somebody up or punking somebody or whatever it might be, they really did. They played videos. They got Kevin Seal in 120 minutes. I don't know if you remember. It was a good channel. Record labels gave MTV free music videos, and that was MTV's programming. And what MTV would do is they would show these music videos, and they attract a viewing audience, and they brought in advertising to generate money for themselves. Just like YouTube. It's the exact same model. The only difference is, in the old days, when you got promoted and you got exposure, you could generate money through music sales. In the new days, you get the promotion and you get the fame, but the music sales aren't there to offset that, so the equations change and the content providers are getting really pissed because they're not getting their fair share of the pie. And these are the exact issues that we're dealing with right now.
But there's a great story where when you were at Spin Art, one of the bands wanted you to permit MTV to use some of the music.
I guess you read that, huh? Yeah.
Some of us do our homework.
Yeah, well, see, MTV also, when you did a submission to MTV, you actually had to, as they became larger and larger as an entity and were more and more important towards breaking a band or helping that band gain more publicity and fame, when you had to fill in an application to submit the video. And when you did that, you had to give up certain rights. And some of the rights that you were required to give up was granting to MTV the right to use your master recording with anything that they wanted at MTV. So road rules or whatever it might be, the music could be featured in that particular show, and they didn't have to compensate you for it because you had waived those rights when you submitted it. So, yeah, as a matter of fact, they did this gesture where they said, if we use the music, we'll pay you $1. And, they used a band of ours called Pool, and they put it into road rules, and I was adamantly against it, and the band really wanted it, as you could imagine. And this is it, we're going to be in road rules. I'm like, dude, you're going to be 20 seconds in the background. Anyway, so they did it, and MTV did not pay me my $1. And I got really pissed. So I went after them for $1, and I got a $1 check out of them, and I still have that $1 check, and it's like taped to my wall in my office now, 12 years later. But what's more interesting is it came back to haunt them. There was actually a class action lawsuit against MTV because they got the rights to the master recordings. But what they neglected to do was get the rights to the synchronization licenses from the publishers. And recently, the publishers have woken up to this and have sued the pants off of MTV. And then MTV admitted no wrong. They began to do settlements, and there was a class action lawsuit, and settlements were paid out around that as well.
So going back to the difference between the music industry and the record industry, I would assume you would agree with the statement that the passion for music, the general population, is at an all-time high.
It seems to be, yeah.
But yet you look at SoundScan sales figures on a weekly basis, which is the Billboard hot, selling albums, the top 200. Okay, so if you take Bruce Springsteen's record out, which sold 225,000, then you have things in the top 10 that sold 65 or 35,000, which a couple of years ago. So how do you quantify saying that passion and consumption of music is an all-time high when the sales are so minimal?
Well, it is a problem. I mean, I think the major problem that we have, to be honest, is the Recording Industry Association of America represents the interest of its members, which tend to be the major record labels. And back in the 80s, they went on a campaign when video games began to come out, and Betamax first showed up, which became VHS. And it was music, more value for your money. It was literally a campaign that they embarked on to promote music as a better buy for the dollar than everything else. And I'm going to divert for a second, but again, back in the old days, you didn't have a lot of choices with your money for things you wanted to buy. Comic books, I'm a geek. Books, right? And you go to a movie. Kind of ran out then. Music was the other thing. So up comes Pong, kick-ass video game, the Atari, and ColecoVision and so forth. So now you're competing against the entertainment dollars for other things. And then comes Betamax and VHS, and now you're competing against more things. and keep going through the list in the food chain, and internet access, your iPhone subscription, and so forth. So you began to compete for entertainment dollars, and the RIAA rightfully embarked on a campaign trying to convince people that music had the best value for your dollar. They didn't do that after that. And I think one of the biggest problems we have in our society is most people don't know what you know. Nobody knows what a mechanical royalty is. No one knows what distribution is, or synchronization licenses, or trademarking. People don't understand the food chain of the way things work. And when they went on to Napster and they stole, I don't care if you call it sharing or discovering, you stole it, okay? It was stolen. Whether you meant to or not, you were downloading a copyright piece of work for free. You didn't pay anybody for it, so it was stolen. But nobody got paid for it. If you continue to cannibalize the thing that you love, you're going to kill the thing you love because it can't support itself. And we lost the opportunity, in my opinion, over the last 20 years, if not longer, in educating people about how it all works. And it's too freaking complex as well. So that's my complaint with the RIAA. And in regards to how do we deal with decrease in sales, yes, SoundScan. You guys all know what SoundScan is? Okay. So again, it used to be to have a #1 record in SoundScan. You were doing, what was the back? Who was it that did a couple million units? It was a record.
Lil Wayne.
But I'm going back even further than that. Or is Lil Wayne the all-time?
Well, in recent times.
Okay. You used to do like 2 million records sold in a 1 week period, put you at #1. We had a time about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, where it was, emo band on Jay Leno, Saddle Creek Records.
Bright Eyes.
Thank you. Bright Eyes came out. I think Bright Eyes was #1. I think he had 99,000 units, and he was #1 in the Billboard Top 100, if I'm remembering correctly. So what you need to achieve to reach #1 in Billboard and SoundScan, by the way, the Billboard charts reflect the SoundScan information. However, the majority, and I'm saying this anecdotally, I don't have anything to back it up beyond my own information. I'm going to state that I believe the majority of music being sold is happening in an arena that SoundScan doesn't even cover. And the reason I'm going to say that is because at this point, TuneCore, we've distributed over 500,000 songs. There's more music released in 1 day on TuneCore, about 150 to 200 releases in 1 day, than there are on a major label over the course of a year. There's more music released in 3 days on TuneCore than all the majors combined over the course of a year.
Say that again, because that's an amazing statistic.
So there's 150 to 200 releases a day moving through the TuneCore system. That's more music released in 1 day than a major label.
And those are brand new things. That's brand new for that day.
Yep, majority of it. I don't even keep track of it anymore. The majority of that stuff isn't even picked up by SoundScan. And why I pulled out my computer was to pull up a list. Just to roll through, if you wanted to hear some of the figures of bands. I don't know if you guys ever hear of Kelly did a video called Shoes. Yeah?
Of course they did.
That was one of the things I was going to put up on the projector. So this guy, Liam Sullivan, he's a comedian, did a song called Shoes, put on a wig. Oh my God, shoes. Put this thing up, just cost him a couple $100, put it into YouTube. He now has over 70 million views of this thing. He sold over 1 million songs. So at TuneCore, I have to be careful how I phrase this. When your music sells in iTunes, TuneCore will pay you 70 cents per song sold. We pass through 100% of what iTunes pays to us. That's just the way I have to phrase it for contractual reasons. So if you do the math on 1 million times 70 cents, you can end up and understand what sort of revenue is being generated off the radar. And I can pull up, a list.
By the way, so 70 cents is passed through the system.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the other 29 cents go?
The retail store makes that. So it's just like you sell a record to Tower for $10. Tower marks it up to $15.98. They keep that extra $5.98. The $10 goes back to the distributor.
A 99-cent song on iTunes, 29 cents goes to iTunes, and 70 cents goes to the holder of the copyright.
More or less, yeah.
Okay. Just want everybody to understand the basic math.
Yep. So there's something in here, I've got to find it and see if it's on my desktop. And what was interesting is the RIAA is the entity that certifies sales and issues gold and platinum records. It used to be silver, gold, platinum, and then it used to be silver, gold, platinum, and diamond.
Right.
When you hit 10 million. That's not happening anymore. So the RIAA in the United States was uniquely qualified to issue these certifications because the certification was based on the number of units shipped, not on the number of units sold. And the reason they knew how many units shipped is who were their members, the entities that controlled the channels of distribution, so they felt that they had a pretty good pulse on what was going on. Well, with all due respect, I released more music than all of their label members combined in a couple of days. And it occurred to me that the majority of this stuff wasn't even being picked up by their system. So I said, screw it. I'm going to start issuing my own sales certification records. So we're doing our old silver, gold, platinum records, and I just came up with a design, and we're going to issue them. And I was going to pull that up because I thought you would find it fascinating.
Are you telling me that the song Shoes has not been certified as a platinum song?
Sure. Has not.
Has not.
That's right.
And when they go to the RIAA and say, we'd like to certify this, they say what?
They won't have a clue, the RIAA, because this majority of this is happening outside the RIAA SoundScan system. Plus, the way they calculate it is very different. They calculate in the number of units shipped, not in the number of units sold. They don't take into account ringtones. Individual sales on the album aren't always part of the total equation.
But I'm told the Billboard singles chart includes digital sales.
I don't want to get into pounding SoundScan. I'm just going to articulate
Are
more around what I know to be fact.
So the bigger fact you're saying is the sales that go through TuneCore are not necessarily recognized and included in the conventional charts.
That's right. And, part of the reason for that is you have to have a UPC, and the UPC needs to be registered with SoundScan. Well, I don't register them. And if one of our customers comes in and we issue them free UPCs and they don't register the UPC with SoundScan, then you can't pick up the sale, let alone the ISRC codes around songs. And that gets more complex.
So does TuneCore publish a chart?
Yeah.
So you have a weekly sales chart that probably is more accurate than what I'm paying a lot of money to read Billboard.
I didn't say that.
I know you did.
We actually have a TuneCore Billboard chart because Billboard, I believe, recognized that we were picking up sales that they weren't picking up on. So if you go to billboard.com into the digital sector, you'll see TuneCore. You can see the top selling songs and albums. That's right. So when I pull this thing up, some of the things that you've heard of, bands you've heard of Nine Inch Nails. Let's see, Josh Kelly. Here's a guy that was dropped by, I think it was Epic Records, and he's sold over 475,875 songs in the past year. We have Kelly's Shoes, which I've already told you about. We have Dr. Horrible's Sing-Along blog. Okay. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Oh, my God, I just forgot his name. Do you remember the name? Josh. Yes. Thank you. 2 for 2. That's his online thing. That has sold over 440,000 songs. Okay, we did the Jay-Z album, Reasonable Doubt. Cat Williams, you guys know the comedian Cat Williams. Again, we are well over a couple 100,000 songs. Jason Mraz, Ziggy Marley, you've heard of them. Maiko. Here's a great one, Halloween Scream Themes. This album generated over $40,000 in revenue. And last October, it was number 3 on the UK charts for digital download sales. Guys, that particular release has done over 200,000 sales, 200 songs.
Can you identify in your charts regionalizations?
Yeah, because iTunes, which is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, releases something called trending reports. So the digital stores pay out the money and provide the sales information for what's sold about 30 days after the end of the month. So what happened in January is reported to you in March. So usually you'll have to wait till March to see what's going on. However, iTunes is the only company on the planet that releases trending data. And they release to you, to us, because we're the entity that have the relationship, daily information that shows you what sold yesterday in the zip code of the buyer for each individual track or album. So I can tell you specifically, if you use TuneCore, who's buying your music on a daily basis in the zip code of your buyers. Regionalization. What we did at TuneCore actually is because, as you can imagine, these files are gigantic for us based on the amount of data that we get. We do them once a week like a SoundScan report. People can pay us $2.98, and they log into their account. I don't care if you have 1 album or 100 albums. You get all the information, and you download your report, and it'll show you your trending information for the last week. So you'll know where your fans are, who's buying it, and you can also do cash flow projections on how much money you're going to be making next month.
Now, if I'm an enterprising label executive and I want to see what's selling that isn't signed, can I subscribe to those reports and see what's going on?
Not yet.
Not yet. If I'm an enterprising programmer of a radio station in
Absolutely.
suburban New York, can I subscribe to that?
I haven't set up a back-end system yet, the way you've described it, but part of what I think it's my job to do is connect dots and create opportunity for our customers. So if an enterprising, young, striking, incredibly intelligent disc jockey with his own show approached us about that, I would just provide that information to you.
And it could be sorted by the zip code.
Sure. And then, the benefit to me is I turn to our customers and they say, hey, by using TuneCore, you have the opportunity to be played on the following show. As a matter of fact, I love tech. As a matter of fact, we're rolling out the iPhone app. Yeah, this is going to work. We're rolling out an iPhone app, which is just about done, which is called TuneCore Discover Music, and you won't even need to subscribe to anything because you can press a button on here that says, TuneCore, would you like to use your current location? You click OK. This phone knows where you are via geolocation. And then you just click the local bands tab, and it will surface the top 25 bestsellers based on where you're standing. And you can actually listen to those. Yeah, it's cool. And then you can listen to those, and then you can actually sort through those by genre. So you can actually, if you wanted to, you could just plug into the phone and play that.
Now, because you're dealing with the internet, is this information only available in North America, or
It's global.
globally?
It's global.
So I could be anywhere on the planet and find out what.
As long as you have a 3G, as long as it plugs into the AT&T 3G network.
But
yeah.
but forget that. I can go to you and say, hey, I live in Australia. I want to know how many.
I could tell you what TuneCore stuff is selling in
That's
Australia.
what I mean.
Yeah. And I mean,
because SoundScan can't do that.
well, so now you're getting into, if I can divert for a second, that's right. Yes, you're correct. And sort of my business model is, on the left hand, I'm meat and potatoes. I sell things. It's very non-sexy. I'm not Twitter. I'm not Facebook. I'm not MySpace. I make money, and we make it by selling something. That came across rather harshly. But it's not esoteric. It's not wrapped around advertising and social networking, and I'll figure out how to monetize it later. We sell things. I'll get you in one quick second. On the right hand, you're picking up on it, the data. I mean, the data is incredible. For a media company, we know what song is selling where, how often, how much money it's generating. And if you want to get really creepy about it, I know how much people are making, how often they withdraw their money. But then on top of that, the other part of TuneCore is we're kind of a bank because the entities pay us and we allow you to withdraw the money at will. Or you can take the money that you've earned and use it to buy the things that you already buy, like CD manufacturing or buttons or posters or T-shirts or stickers or tour van rentals or copywriting or take your pick. So I want to reduce friction to commerce for you, take headaches out of your life, make it cheaper for you to use my system, and let you take the money that you've earned from the sale of your own music and use it towards the application and purchase of the things that you want to buy. So from a data perspective, I could also know not only how much are you earning, but what are you spending it on. And then there's a whole other half of it, which to me, musicians are very unique in the world. More unique than any other type of artist. Not more valuable, but more unique. In the respect that music is big enough, but it's small enough. It lasts for 3.5 to 5 minutes. It's the sort of thing you put on a mixtape if you want to try to seduce somebody. It's something you give to somebody you hate, somebody you love. It brings out mood and emotion. It's wrapped around everything because of the way it connects with people in a very visceral way. Music just does that. Film does that, but it takes 2 hours. Books do that, but you got to read them. It doesn't mean that they don't have value. They're just different. So musicians are really, to me, the gateway to the rest of the world because musicians collect fans. And the fan is everybody else. And I think about this. When I was in high school looking like Robert Smith, smoking clove cigarettes, hating my life, with black fingernail polish that my dad just couldn't understand, if Morrissey, who was then a band member of the Smiths, had emailed me directly and said, Jeff, I'll give you a free song from the Smiths. Just click on this link and you can have it. I click on the link and it takes me to Pepsi. I wouldn't have given a shit. I would have done it in a heartbeat. Pepsi just got my eyeballs. Pepsi says, get your free Smith song, Jeff. Type in your email address and we'll email you a link and you can download it. Okay. And that's the power to me of a relationship between a band and their fan. The band can give up free music. And that can cause a fan to go through a behavioral step like go to my webpage, which is an advertisement. But I believe that the band should be compensated for that. It's their fame driving those eyeballs. So what I want to get into is leveraging music for corporate sponsorship and allowing our customers to opt in for that, and we're actually doing that. What we've rolled out, we've got a couple of things rolling out. The first one is bands, there's $5,000 sitting in a pot, and there's 30 days. Tell your fans if you want. It's completely up to you to click on a link. It'll throw them to a website by a company called IK Multimedia. IK Multimedia makes software applications to record music with. T-Rax, Amplitude. So tell your fans to click on a link. It'll drop them an IK Multimedia. They type in an email address. They'll get a free song, and you'll get your proportionate share of the $5,000. And that's corporate sponsorship underwriting the cost of music. And it's bands capitalizing on their fame in a very new way. That's the way I think about it. But that data now, as a band goes out and has fans, a band can ask a fan, where do you live? What's your age? Male or female? When's your birthday? And you can gain demographic information on the fan if the band doesn't mind it, and then allow the band the opportunity to use that information on behalf of somebody else if the band doesn't mind it, and allow the band to make money off of that. So Pepsi, instead of dropping $250,000 for a banner ad at a social networking site which has a 0.00006 click-through, why not drop $250,000 over here to the bands and let the bands decide if they want to drive people to this website to get a free song, and let them take their percentage of that $250,000. I think that's a much more effective marketing campaign. But the data the data points are just incredible. And don't think it's, when you go on the internet, you know your IP address. I know what sort of browser you're using. We all do. Google Analytics is free. We are not anonymous for the most part on the internet. It's scary when you get down to the level of detail that is out there, but that's a whole different conversation.
Right. Do you ever think there's going to be these huge, gigantic, monstrous record labels ever again? Or do you think they're just going to go extinct after this?
I don't think record labels will go extinct. I think they'll just morph into something else.
Not extinct, but like these massive Sony BMGs and these RCAs.
I think that there is going to be consolidation further. I do. I think that we're going to move from 4 to 3 to 2. I think power is going to be consolidated in new ways, and there are going to be new massive multi-billion-dollar international corporations which control media and have access to media outlets like American Idol that most people don't. I think they'll change, but they're not going to go away. There's too much power and money in it.
Also, the need for discovery is still something that the record companies can provide, because everybody wants a filter, and they can do that better than anybody. So it depends on how you want to play the game. Frankly, if you don't want to put your music out yourself, you don't want to be bothered with that, you just want to make music, you borrow money from what's called a record company, and they'll provide you the service and do that. So if you want to play the game that way, or it'll be reduced to the Hollywood model where there's boutiques, where you've recorded a record, but you need somebody to distribute it, so you go to him. You need this guy to help you with the artwork, and then you need this person to help you design, some sort of website. So they'll have those different little entities under an umbrella called a record company, and you can choose from a menu of things you want, either what they offer or externally. So there's always going to be a record company. And Doug Morris, who's the chairman of the Universal Music Group, has always said this, and he's gone on record saying, tell me one band or artist or musician that has broken solely off the internet without some sort of outside force or agency helping it. He says that's what record companies do. They identify something that has a following, and then they can blow it up and take it to the next level. And that's what he thinks, and that's his view. And I kind of been looking around. I can't find somebody that's really sold those massive numbers until tonight without a record company behind it.
I think it's more interesting as to defining what is success, too. I mean, there's different ways to define it. So the thing that's most interesting to me is the way a band would become famous traditionally was through 3 media outlets: press, radio, or television. It's print, magazines, commercial radio, or MTV. That was really...
And touring.
Yeah, well, but the 3 national vehicles that broke Alanis Morissette. Alanis Morissette was selling hundreds of thousands of copies of her album before she even toured. because commercial radio had picked up on them. Touring, I don't disagree with you. It absolutely helps, but you needed the commercial radio play, the MTV play, or the cover of Rolling Stone as an extreme to make a point. And what's become interesting is MTV basically is gone, and it's been replaced by YouTube. Now, in the old days, I promise. In the old days, you had to go through the record label to submit the video to possibly get programmed on MTV. These days, there's no middleman. You can film me and put me up into YouTube, and you've just broadcast me. Right? So you don't need the middleman to get there. MP3 blogs are replacing print magazines, and things like Last.fm, Pandora, iLike, the Genius Bar, or whatever you want to think. Algorithm-based or editorially based streaming internet radio stations or Sirius Satellite XM with much wider programming lists are replacing commercial radio traditionally, enabling artists to have access to that directly as well. So the media outlets, although commercial radio is kind of not there, not even close yet, the traditional media outlets are shifting. People have direct access to them. And I find that fascinating as well. And that's how these bands, I'm pointing to my computer, are able to sell so many copies of their music. They're taking advantage of access to media points. The part that always comes up is, how can, a major record label will make me famous? Well, 98% of what a major record label releases fails. 98% of the music that they have put out you have never heard of, and they have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions, in trying to get you to know about it, but it didn't work. And the question is why? And to me, it ultimately comes back to the art. You need to create a piece of art that causes reaction. If it doesn't react, it doesn't matter how many times you get airplay. It doesn't matter how many times your video gets seen. If people don't like it, if it doesn't react, nothing's going to happen. How does something react? It's good, it's bad, it's the environment. Obama gets inaugurated. Aretha Franklin used TuneCore today. She put up "My Country 'Tis of Thee" on my website. I'm like blown away by that. But there's a perfect example. "My Country 'Tis of Thee," usually not going to be a bestseller. She just sang it at the Obama inauguration. Guess what? It's Black History Month. It's President's Day. It's going to be a bestseller. So it's going to cause a reaction. But I'm getting all over the place. And you did have a question.
I was just going to say that, like, you're saying you're asking if there's going to be any more big, record companies anymore. But I'm just thinking, you just keep talking about gatekeepers and stuff like that. I feel like TuneCore is becoming that. Almost sounds like a public record company. That's what it's sounding like.
That's my goal.
That's your goal. So I was just going to ask, like, what are you going to do when you start? Because it's already there. So what are you going to do when you start making that money? Because it's already there. So it's just a matter of time before everyone's using it and you're making all that money.
I'll tell you, as long as I'm in charge, it's going to have an altruistic vision, because I can't people over. It's not in me. What makes me happier is helping anybody get where they want to go. I get more pleasure out of that as a human being.
But what about his concern? It's a valid question, where MySpace was viewed as the place, and then as soon as Rupert bought it, it became co-opted. Right. I mean, someone's going to come at some point and write you a big fat check, and you're going to have a conversation with yourself and say, do I take this money and spend the rest of my life?
Well, I'll tell you, it's worse than that. Somebody already has come and written a big fat check. I don't own the majority of my company anymore. I did 2 rounds of venture capital, one with Guitar Center, because I was so enamored by it. They took an equity position in my company in 2006, and I was courted by a venture capital, institutional venture capital organization called Opus, and it's public, so I can talk about it. We did a $7 million, what's called B round. And once you have an institutional investor, they put money in to get a return. So there's got to be an exit. And an exit means one of 3 things. We go public, yeah, that's happening. We go out of business, that's not happening. Or we're going to get bought. I mean, so you're right. At some point, there's going to be an exit. On the other hand, if the lifeblood of the business is based around an altruistic business model which proves itself to be viable and generating a lot of revenue, it would be commercial suicide to screw with the formula, is my thought. Now, maybe I am too altruistic, and maybe Fox Interactive or somebody would end up acquiring it and just bastardize it. I certainly hope not. But that's my goal. I wanted to change the world. I wanted to make a better place. It turned out to be a good business model. I'm having a hell of a time doing this. I'm letting a lot of people get to places they never have before. I think the service sector side is not going to go away no matter what. And I have faith, maybe I'm misguided, that we'll get big enough to the point where if we do get an exit opportunity and we are acquired, somebody's smart enough to know you don't screw with something that's working.
You think?
I certainly hope so. It is the altruistic part of me. I mean, even Google, despite their ability to take over the world, in the end, they still do a lot of really good things. MySpace, look, it was bought by Fox, but you can still go and have a free MySpace page. They're improving the feature set. Facebook has a $2.2 billion valuation, and they just keep making it easier to put in open source applications into it. So that's my hope.
Like you talked about how distribution is like the main reason for record labels, but it sounds like it's still the main thing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, and so this is, you're asking, I think all of you are asking and saying the right things, and what's really cool is right now we live in a very confusing time because things are altering as we sit here. It is about PR and it is about distribution. On the other hand, it's not about distribution, and it's not. So, I'll go back to an extreme to make a point. That guy Kelly, Liam Sullivan, selling over 1 million songs, who's been offered TV shows and who was on VH1's I Hate My 30s and does national tours now, where he plays sold-out venues at House of Blues and so forth. No record label, no PR beyond the internet. So this is, by the way, what gets so exciting about social networking. Social networking allows you to have a voice and potentially communicate it to tens of millions of other people who tell to other tens of millions of other people. The next thing you know, everyone has a video of Paris Hilton having sex. That's because that's the way the internet works, right? She didn't have any PR. She had a video that went onto the internet, and the PR was an organic groundswell. Granted, it's an extreme to make a point, but that didn't used to exist. There's things that you can do on your own. For example, if you're in a band and your music's in iTunes, if you don't know what an iMix is, it's a playlist of songs that you could share in the iTunes world. So create a playlist of 12 songs. Put in 3 of your own, 9 by more popular artists. Now when someone's at the more popular artist page, the playlist will surface and they'll see your song. You've just marketed yourself, and you've done that yourself, so you can seed iTunes with multiple playlists. Give them cool names like Music to Have Sex By, Music to Drive Fast By, whatever it might be. Right? People like titles like that. Write a description. Not really, be thoughtful. Albums with reviews in iTunes sell 33% more than albums without reviews. You can review your own album. Give it a thoughtful review. Ask your friends and family. So there's things that you could do to market and promote yourself that actually cause tangible sales. Valentine's Day is coming up. Guess what sells really well? Love songs. Do a cover of a love song. Put it into iTunes. It'll sell through the roof. Christmas comes around, do it that way. You can get discovered that way. So there are tools and but it takes work. And what record labels are there to do is that work for you. But they trade you for it. You want me to do the work? Okay, but you got to give me something for that. And in return, I'll do the work. I can't guarantee it, but I'll put the resources, because that's what I have. I have a whole infrastructure of resources to promote and market you in an attempt to make you a star. But are you willing to give up your rights and revenue in order to have that? Some say yes, some say no.
Okay, then I'm going to thank you very much for coming out here. And so thanks for everybody.
Yeah,
and
thanks for letting me
Jeff.
ramble for like an hour and a half, too. That was great.